and boom, welcome to Tokyo Tonight. Oh, look at that, the comments. So I'm still getting used to the setup. It looks like the um, Tokyo Tonight topics. Yes, it looks like the comments down the bottom, they only reload when oh, that's interesting as well. So the chat box thing from 2.5 years, as you know, I'm playing around with slobs at the moment, this new interface. And I had to rapidly, I didn't have enough time to prepare it last night for 2.5 years. I actually got a really cool new overlay, which I'm going to use for that show. And I think I quite like this overlay for Tokyo Tonight, but I can see, there we go, look at the elements, this is all the stuff which I was editing and playing around with last night. It's good to see you all. Sergeant Bilko, boom, good to see you. Andrea Moboy, election in Sweden at the moment. That's going to be kind of interesting to watch. I must say, I used to do political science, and Sweden was like the model, stable, centre-left democracy kind of country that you'd always use. Yeah, it's going to be, I can't believe that they're going to go full Brexit UK IP type, but you know, there again, yeah, it's going to be really interesting to actually see what happens in Sweden as a yardstick for what might happen in more volatile European countries. So big news over there. Andrea, good to see you. I know you're only going to be around for a while, but it's good to have you along with us. And man, there's so much to talk about tonight. I'm already exhausted. I don't know if you've seen my Twitter or my Facebook today, but it's been kind of nuts. It's been kind of crazy. Yeah, we'll get into that in a minute, but yes, I'm already social media'd out for the day. And this has also actually caused me to become a little bit philosophical, you know, generally recently, but certainly today, about, you know, the social media. I mean, I sort of hate to, I love that it enables all of this, but at the same time, you have to start to ask the question is, are we really better off with so many things lately? But anyway, more reason to get through the intro. So the J-Vlog 07 and D, good to see you. We've got James Kelly, hi. Wow, it's great that you guys all come in. I mean, I just posted this. I totally threw this together, and you just posted this like a few minutes ago, and you're already here. If there's time, by the way, I made a really good track on the iPad, which I'd love to show you guys, but there's so much to talk about tonight, I don't know that there'll even be a chance. We'll see how that goes. Of course, we've got Quint Ranked, good to see you. We've got Dave Hunter, Lawrence Sakai, hey, great to see you. One great thing about the show, which we're going to do with Victor, I told Victor, as you can tell, I told Victor all about my channel. I kind of want it, the main thing right now is I want to spread the word. I'm really now leaning strongly towards, I think that the mobile app idea has legs for two reasons. One, I think it's an easy way to go from there to like the Apple TV, Fire TV app, which I think is a great way to watch my channel. The other thing is that a lot of the things that we can think of as extra features and so on, you know, and a way to have the app be self-funding. You know, I can see that actually the app is a really good way to go. Doing it so I'm leaning towards doing that, an Android and an iOS app for it. So yes, I see Lawrence Sakai, and I immediately think that because you give such awesome feedback all the time, and it's great to see there are more and more people using it, and a lot of people using it just to catch up with the bundles, actually, even that you can share. And I think I've still got one in the information below, and it's something which Victor really sort of cottoned onto that, and as a community guy, he's like, okay, let's reboot the show and let's make it so that we're sharing content. Like, that's a great way to boost community stuff, even when it's just us. And I'm like, yeah, so he's like, he's into it, and we're going to be doing that around the show soon. The J-Vlog, yes, I am using Streamlabs OBS, yes I am. In fact, I can probably, I'll mess the whole thing up if I switch around too much, but I downloaded a bunch of themes, and as you can see, I took the themes. Normally, you know, this would be like a little box of me playing video games and like money being donated or something on the side, and the whole screen would be a video screen game thing, but I basically customized some of the cooler looking themes, although I'm still in the midst of it, and into the format that I like, the 3 screens. Even for the top, honestly, I don't really care that much. I mean, it's not that important to me at the top. I'll think of something better, but I can put logos and stuff like that. And yes, I love Streamlabs OBS. I mean, it's basically OBS. It's the same thing, but yeah, you know, it's all very, very cool, and I'm having a lot of fun with that, and I love the look that it gives the show. Yeah. I mean, just the one from the party. It's just there's a lot of really cool creators in there, which is just good to be supporting and following. So who else we got? We got Quint Ranked. We got Dave Hunter, another great my Jan tester as well, and you got one of the shirts. Who else we got in here? There's an election. Sasha Booker. Yes, there's an election today. That can be an awkward question in Japan. Ohio gozaimasu. Tai Nakamura, good to see you, sir. We got Barringer, oh dear, already saying oh dear. I'm worried what the oh dear is about, but all good, and I think we're caught up at the moment. Um, so yeah, what a day, what a week. I mean, seriously, think back for a minute. Um, I really have been trying to avoid paying attention to America, but you got on my sights this week. Of course, we had the Resistance, the Lodestar. I mean, honestly, it's like a really badly scripted, you know, comedy drama. You know, it's like if the West Wing, not the West Wing, but House of Cards was like written by Comedy Central. Right now, it's so painful to watch. But yes, so there's that drama, which is a drama, and I must admit, I'm trying so hard not to watch it. And like bad reality TV, you just have to watch it. I mean, it's just like watching a car crash, you know. Yes, the tennis, oh dear, the tennis, that's right, the tennis, oh dear, the tennis. We're going to get to that because this is all in reverse order from today backwards, so unfortunately the tennis is first, and I'll try to get through it quickly. I've pretty much talked out and stressed out most of the stuff already on Facebook. But we also had, of course, a Shindo 7. It was only a mag 6.7, so as an earthquake, it wasn't, you know, a huge earthquake by magnitude. Remembering that magnitude represents like a bomb. The size of the bomb was not that big. But the Shindo, the shaking on the ground in the town of Atsuma in Hokkaido was 7, which is the highest degree of ground acceleration shaking. Remember that magnitude has nothing, well, it's not a measure of shaking, it's a measure of pure energy. It's like calories in food. It doesn't tell you how big the thing you ate is, it just tells you how many calories are in the whole thing. You know, you can have a calorie mate that's as big as a human being. It can be 200 calories, right? It's like the same with magnitude. Magnitude Shindo, Japanese Shindo, tells you how big the actual shaking is. It tells you how much you got to eat. If you compare it to like a Twinkie or whatever. And yes, this thing was shallow. It was close to the surface, and in the town of Atsuma, I mean, you know, Hokkaido got a really bad Shindo 7, which is basically off the scale, and it caused basically mountains around this town to just collapse. 2 days before that, we had the most powerful typhoon in 25 years come to Japan. Tokyo was way out of the way from compared to Osaka, for example. But we had crazy wind here. I mean, we were in the high wind area, even though it was sort of sunny weather here. And it was hard to walk in a straight line here in Tokyo, but it was just a super windy day. But down in Osaka, I mean, you saw a ship got blown into the causeway to Kansai Airport. The airport there, I think, is still shut down, or it's coming back. In Hokkaido, 3 million households lost power. And this is the age that we're going, at least for the weather, this is the age that we're going into. Kansai Kuko flooded by the tidal surge brought in by the typhoon. And again, this is what's all going to... So by calories, I mean, you know, calories are also a measure of energy, right, as opposed to the actual how much food. So you could think, you could look at calories as by saying how much, you know, I'm hungry, how much food, how much is there to eat. But calories don't necessarily represent the volume of stuff that you eat. And it's the same with earthquakes. You know, magnitude is the energy within the earthquake, but it doesn't necessarily represent how much shaking you're going to feel. I mean, of course, the more calories, the bigger it's likely to be. The more full you're likely to be. Same with earthquakes. The bigger the magnitude, the more likely it is that you're going to feel a lot of shaking. But of course, in Fiji, they had a magnitude 8.2, crazy big earthquake, but it was really deep underground. People didn't feel it very much, whereas this was a magnitude 6.7 in Tokyo, in Hokkaido, and the shaking was off the scale. So, you know, I'm sorry, maybe it's a vague analogy, but that's kind of the idea. It was a really big earthquake. We're going to talk about all of these things, but of course we've had the tennis, we've had so many things. Plus I watched Glow. I love Netflix this week. Yeah, lots of great stuff. So, you know, my channel's doing well. Please try it out if you haven't tried it out, because I made it for you guys and it is free, and I want people to get using it, because it's just awesome for this sort of thing. You know, I've been we got 2.5 Voyages going again. We found a new mission, a new purpose, and it looked really great last night. So lots of great things happening. Let's get into the topics, because if there is time left, I also want to show you a really cool track that I made. Well, and that I set up. I didn't actually make the track yet either. So this is cool. This is by, he said this around today. So you may remember Baye McNeil, the author of Hi, My Name is Baye and I'm a Racist. And he, I've had him on the show, met him a bunch of times. Really great guy, fantastic writer. And you may remember that he was very prominent in the whole blackface thing. When basically, even today, there are still Japanese TV networks that were including blackface prominently, on TV shows or whatever. And he was sort of playing a role, got featured in some newspaper columns explaining why this is really not a good idea. And it's an interesting, sort of point that's happened over and over. And I believe the show was shown on TBS. So it was interesting. TBS, when they do their human rights training, it's kind of a way of sort of social awareness training, whatever, which I had to do when I was working in a big Japanese corporation. When I did it, they were focused on, they actually focused on foreigner discrimination and Doa discrimination. Apparently the theme that they chose this year at TBS, one of the themes was blackface, and they asked Bayo to come in and lecture to the TBS staff on understanding blackface and what the issues with it are, and what sensitivities they should have about it in Japan. And he's actually got they put it on TV. So Bayo, he sent this around today. There's actually I think it was a seminar, and you can kind of tell a lot of the discussions that we've all had around this subject, including I can see some points which I've made and that I've really agreed with him, is kind of what he says. People love to say, blackface, that's American history, that's American culture, that's not us, that's, Japan shouldn't be held up by complexes based on America's, history of injustice. It makes sense. I mean, that's always been the argument. But the point is, what do you do when you know that what you are doing causes harm, even if you got a different historic context? And he explains it really, really well. Japan doesn't live in a vacuum anymore. If you make videos like this, it will go on to YouTube. People around the world will see it. People will get offended. People will get hurt by it. And if you know it's going to offend people and you know it's going to hurt people, even if that's not your intention to hurt, can you still do it? You can't unknow something once you know it. Which I think is a great point. And he presents it really reasonably and thoughtfully. Obviously he's had the debate a lot, but it's a good presentation, and it's great to see that they're actually inviting him on. Good night, Andrea. Have a good night there. Herbie Hancock, the New Standard, says, Sergeant Bilko, I will try to do that if I get to the track at the end of the show. This is another one. So this is the blackface thing. So that's Shinzo Abe, the Prime Minister's Twitter account, and that is him praising Naomi Osaka for her win, first ever Japanese to ever, male or female, I believe, to win a US Open, defeating Serena Williams in the final overnight. I was done. I woke up and I just saw it on the news. I didn't watch the game, and I'm not much of a tennis head, so I'm not really. So this is one thing as well. I feel a little bit self-conscious that I dived into some of these online debates based on certain perspectives that I have, without with people who seem to be a lot more knowledgeable about tennis than me, and I wasn't meaning to get into the subtleties of tennis. But first thing is, awesome, amazing, and great to see. Of course, she's a Japanese, born in Japan, Japanese citizen. She has citizenship of other countries, as people up to the age of 20 are allowed to have. She is currently 20, so technically speaking, I believe under the letter of the law, she'll need to renounce other citizenships next year. Although the truth is, almost every person I know, I mean, even the head of the opposition, Alberto Fujimori, the actual president of Peru, was recognized as a Japanese citizen. So the rules on paper that you have to choose, but she is, I believe, U.S. resident. I don't know if she's U.S. citizen actually, but she's Haitian and Japanese. Fantastic for all of those things. She chose to compete in the tennis circuit under her Japanese citizenship, and as a representative of Japan, and as someone who identifies that part. And it's interesting. There's been a long discussion of her identity in an interview in the New York Times, and a lot of discussion online, including some stuff. I've brought this up before, that I had made assumptions which were challenged, and I've rethought based on reading more about more interviews with her. I think she's a fan. I mean, Japan, here is the point, Japan is so lucky to have her, and I think for all the things that you can say about Shinzo Abe, the fact that he of course praised the fact that this representative of Japan and Japanese citizen won the US Open. That's a great thing. Plus he pointed out at a time this week, I mean, Osaka's not just Osaka, but basically all of that western Japan is still trying to get over this enormous typhoon. The north has had this earthquake. I mean, dozens of people have died this week. There's power outages in Hokkaido. Japan really needed some good news this week, and she brought it. Her praising not just the fact that she's a fantastic representative of Japan, which she is, but it's great to hear that, given that some people question And ironically, most of the people I see questioning are not Japanese. Well, you know, again, there is the thing about people being, oh, she doesn't speak Japanese, like she wouldn't speak Japanese in the original interviews. I think some of the backlash about that has caused her. She does speak in Japanese in interviews recently. She is very childish, which is natural. It's consistent with my half friends who have grown up overseas who just know the Japanese from their mums and so on, but which actually is more endearing. But yeah, you know, fantastic, good to see the recognition, and it's just an amazing historic moment. And she's an amazing tennis player who, you know, grew up worshipping Serena Williams during the week. I mean, when she won the semi-final, and you know, her whole thing, give a message for Serena is, oh, I love you, and you can tell it's all really sincere and genuine. So what a moment that she gets to meet her hero, her idol, and get to meet her in a competition. And you know what happens. What happens next, I've learned throughout the course of the day since waking up and reading about it and tweeting about it, is extremely sensitive to a lot of people. Apparently, some people think that, you know, I have used fairly direct language to say what. I mean, let's face it, nobody's talking about the fact that a 20-year-old Haitian Japanese girl has just, you know, done an amazing thing, beating one of probably the greatest women's champion of all time, to win the US Open, changing of the torch and everything. Everyone's talking about the fact that this prima donna, you know, basically there were 3 calls made against her, all of them accurate. The coach admitted he was signaling to her and says, hey, people do it all the time, you know, why did the referee have to actually enforce the rule this time, the umpire? Then she smashed a racket, which is a violation, again, violation for that. And then she went and basically unloaded abuse at the umpire, called him a thief, called him a liar, demanded an apology. And yeah, she got dinged the 3rd time, and she was in total control of those later 2 penalties. And, you know, because of this, you know, basically destroyed the moment for Osaka. And when I said that it was disrespectful to Osaka, you know, people say, well, she was being nice to Osaka. She told everybody, please stop booing because she played good. No, she didn't. She ruined the whole. She took the whole game. She destroyed the event. She showed disrespect. So again, here's my perspective. I haven't refereed for a while, but I am a certified rugby referee. I love sports. I think sports are fantastic for kids. I think that you know, I think that the environment of basically the sort of you know, the respect, the discipline that it teaches you. And you know, and rugby is a sport where the sport itself is harsh. You know, it's an extremely physical sport, but you always show respect for the umpire, even when they're wrong. You know, and you can penalize people just for even questioning your decision. Getting called a thief, I mean, is so unthinkable in rugby. I mean, if it happened, I wouldn't hesitate to red card. And this was you know, basically it was really seriously bad, unsportsmanlike conduct, and consistent with history. And the result is, you know, disgraceful scenes. I mean, you know, the audience basically all riled up by, you know, Serena, who people seem to worship, and you're not allowed to say anything bad about her. You know, booing and making her cry. She apologized for winning. I mean, I'm watching and reading in the morning and watching the clips and thinking, holy hell, and somehow, you know, Serena's like a hero for saying, hey, everybody, stop booing so much at her. It's not her, it's the sexist referee. And the umpire, you know, the calls are sexist. Again, all the people saying that, well, you know, people loved it when McEnroe did it. McEnroe was an asshole. He was an asshole. I mean, I back him. I don't know. I understand that Americans loved him. But, you know, I lived in Australia at the time that he was really big, in New Zealand. He got disqualified from, you know, for the same sort of conduct, you know, from the Australian Open. In the middle of a game, you know, and just because men can get away with it, so, you know, I don't know, so all of a sudden the umpire is sexist. I was sent something by a friend, the Washington Post, saying that, you know, the umpire, yes, it was a technicality, but the umpire should have just been the bigger person, sucked it up, you know, absorbed the abuse. But no, he was a chauvinist. He had to put it down because she was a woman, and he, you know, his chauvinist brain said that he couldn't have a woman talking to him like that, and so he did the penalties. No, he was just enforcing the rules. I mean, I'm a referee, so I'm sympathetic to this. If he was wrong, if he was, you know, showing clear bias, I'd get that. But, you know, people are writing articles in newspapers that this umpire that was just basically, here was a woman, you know, a great champion, imploding and clearly digging. All 3 of the violations were clearly accurate. And the umpire's sexist. So it's kind of funny. It's kind of like a Rorschach, how do you say it? A Rorschach picture. People see what they want to see. What I see is, I see a fantastic thing for Naomi Osaka, and again, as the father of a multicultural, Japanese citizen kid, and not just thinking, I mean, in a way, my kid's going to be, the way things are going, a bit more like you, Darvish, or like, halves in Japan, which the great thing in Japan lately is that half kids in Japan lately really are getting really accepted as regular Japanese people. They grow up as Japanese, and people see that. They recognize the language, the cultural assimilation. There's still a bit of a grey thing, of course, around, well, what about, people that, including Japanese, full not just half Japanese, but other Japanese who grew up outside of Japan, and whether they're really accepted. And that's always more awkward, especially when they don't speak the language and they're not familiar with the culture. And this puts Naomi in a really interesting zone. One, there are not many Haitian Japanese people to begin with, so she's within a minority, and another minority. And on top of that, from 3 years old, although she's born in Japan, has a Japanese mum, and is a legitimate Japanese citizen, she grew up in America, close to the Haitian community, and she's genuinely multicultural. And it's challenging for Japanese people to be told that this person who doesn't speak their language is Japanese like them, but she is. This is the thing, and there are lots of people like that. And in my age, all of these half kids, I know kids who grew up in New Zealand and Australia, who were half Japanese, and they always felt like they were rejected by all of the cultures that they're part of, and they didn't know which one was okay to call their own. They'd feel left out. They'd feel like outsiders in New Zealand, and they'd go to Japan hoping it would be a safe place, and then go to Japan and find Japanese, say, you're not really Japanese, and they get really messed up by it. And yet here is someone who falls into that category. She's Japanese, but she grew up outside of America. And to me, if citizenship, identity, it's a social construct. It's not a scientific thing. It's defined by what people think. And if Japanese society is expanding its mind to be able to recognize that there are lots of different ways to be Japanese, you don't just have to be the salaryman doing a golf swing at the airport. You can actually have a Haitian dad and live in Florida and still do great things. I mean, she is sitting, apart from the fact that she's just a fantastic, wonderful person to watch, her manner, she's and a great sports person. It's also great for kids who are sitting out there thinking, man, everywhere is rejecting me or whatever, and you can say, and people will say, oh, you're like her. It changes the perception. So, for me, it's so great what she's achieved, and what she represents is so significant. Again, for a very for a group that people don't care about. This is the thing. People don't even think about overseas-based half Japanese, and their acceptance. But I care about them. I have friends in that boat. I can think that could be my son in a different circumstance. It's the kids of my friends. And she's fantastic for that, and all of that's there. And one, I'm annoyed that basically an unsportsman-like unsports diva just went and did this, and in a way that I personally hate. People attacking the umpire, for me, is just the worst sort of bad sportsmanship. You're basically soccer hooligans if you think it's okay to attack a referee when they're correct, as this umpire was. And then one step further, of course, other people, they look at it, and they when she says that this is sexism, lots of people are launching into that. All of these people on Twitter, I'm getting articles sent to me and tweets saying, oh, this was sexism, or this is inconsistent. And maybe it is. And look, as a lawyer and a referee, if there's an inconsistency on this, if people say, well, one, I mean, if there's an issue that men are not getting penalized for abusing umpires, well, I sure as hell hope that they start penalizing the men just the same. Or if the feeling is that that Serena shouldn't be penalized and she should be allowed to attack the umpire, then get rid of the rule and let everyone attack umpires all that you like. And again, you're going to have a complete joke of a sport. But and that would offend me, and I wouldn't let my kids near tennis if that's what the sport became. But that's what. Again, people say, I don't understand that, but some people are arguing that. Some people are saying, the Washington Post said that the umpire's mind was based on chauvinism. Maybe it is, so ban male officials. I mean, again, all of a sudden it's become a crusade, and, for me somehow I'm criticizing Serena's behavior as somehow, being part of the patriarchy. I don't see that. I see, well, again, well, maybe that's the problem. Maybe I am, but it's been a long, draining day for what really should be a great day. I think it's a significant it's a significant achievement. I mean, it's a huge achievement, and not just for what she's achieved, but for what she represents. I mean, this is a big deal, and I think it's fantastic, and it's just a shame that you know, Serena had to make it all about herself because she couldn't control herself, you know, because she couldn't follow the damn rules, if you ask me. That's my opinion. Anyway, time to retire for Serena. Well, that's kind of where I'm at, honestly. I mean, you know, what kind of a role model is she? I mean, she's done this before as well. Remember, she did this to Cloisters, yeah, and she got a 2-year probation from that. So you know, I think she should get severely sanctioned for what happened. That's my opinion. Anyway, and this is what I read on the BBC. I'm looking for this huge celebration of this win by this amazing new athlete, and this is all I have to read all day. You know, stole the show. Osaka crying her eyes out in a sea of boos, you know, while she's receiving the damn trophy. So, you know, what a shame. Hey, Corp Q Summer, good to have you along. And yeah. One thing just here, this is kind of cool. So you may have noticed that the picture quality of the 2.5 Voyages last night, apart from the fact that I had this awesome slobs interface, we also had, of course, I was using a new feature of Skype, which has come out. There are 2 things. Of course, you can now record, you can do multi-person calls, awesome. You can record the calls, also awesome. But we didn't do that because we were live. You can actually do this new thing called a NDI output, which will basically track the Skype stream itself that it uses in the software for streaming the video, rather than just capturing it off your screen, which degrades the image. You can feed it straight into OBS, which is what we did. So basically, it was like I had a direct network connection to Victor's webcam and his mic directly in my setup here in Tokyo. And we were streaming. The quality was amazing, the zero latency. As you saw, it worked really, really well. I had to improvise just as a monitor because I couldn't capture my own video from Skype. I could only capture his, which meant that normally I would just capture his and he wouldn't be able to see anything, but I could see both of us. But that kind of sucks for the interaction. So I actually set up my Skype. I made it a 3-way call where I set up Skype with my mobile phone so that he could see. The interface I'm going to work on a little bit, but it was so cool. It looks so good. It works so well. Kay and Kodos, good to see you. Welcome. So yeah, it was that was really, really awesome. It worked out really, really well, and that's my reason to talk about the tennis. We'll come back to that. The reboot of 2.5 Voyages I talked about earlier. Yeah, we talked about it. Victor's like, 1, he was pumped up by the party. 2, he was pumped up by I finally got him to sit down and go through my channel, and he likes it, and he wants to basically do the whole bundle promotion. And you know, the idea, well, I've got shirts to give away, we've got it's a nice way to get guests on and to promote, have people show the channels that they want to recommend. Hey, Mogberry Pie, good to see you. How's it? Good to have you along. So yeah, you know, and exactly for things like the party where you meet all these awesome new people who make videos, it's a great way to promote them, to have them come on, to recommend the channels that they like, and to share it with you guys and get you guys all watching. Not, you know, rather than, you know, high school fights or whatever the algorithm, you know, wants to drive you to with the ads, what you want to watch based on the people you want to support. Last night, yes, the volume was a bit of an issue and Victor banging the disc. So this is something that I noticed, and it's always the case. I'm a little bit quiet, partly because I have to be quiet where I am, and partly because Victor is Victor, and because yeah, so I noticed his mic level was really high, mine was low, so I tried to like turn his down to level it, and then everyone said, hey, Victor's really quiet, and I felt like, well, people are gonna watch him anyway, so I put the volume back up. We'll figure that out. The ironic thing is that every week we use like the regular just plug and play Google Hangouts. I mean, there's almost nothing you can do wrong with it, and yet somehow we have technical issues with it like almost every week. What I did last night, I set that whole thing up in 30 minutes. That was the most complex setup with, I had to install NDI plugins into both OBS, I had to Studio and into Streamlabs, and I had to enable all the settings of the advanced features of Skype, and I had to test it, and I had to configure the screens. You have no idea how I was at a complete technical panic setting this up for the show. And I turned it on and there was not a glitch. It was just like awesome. It was like that, you talk about like the scenario that should have been a complete disaster. It worked out really, really well. So yeah, it was really good. And Yeah, I used to be able to see the number of people subscribed to a channel, but not anymore. Well, and I guess I don't necessarily do that with this tool, but you can still watch it pretty well. Mr. Quaddy Chap, no, I do definitely not want to panic every week. But you know, it's all baby steps and it's always improving, and that's what I love about this as a hobby. It just lets me play around and improve all this stuff. But as you can see, this is like, you know, cool. Yes, Shizen Taisu, I think that was the handle name. You are a legend. Thank you. I mean, yes. That was awesome. There's my channel, of course. Please check it out. Please try it out. Please use it. You know, check out the bundles. You can just watch bundles. You don't even have to actually log in and use it to be able to watch the bundles, and you can share them with anybody. So please check that stuff out and support the please support the application, because that'll take us on to the next stage of you know, I think I will eventually go towards getting a Kickstarter to get the app made, but this thing is solid and I want you guys to see it, and I would really love to ask for your support for it later on, so please have a look at it. It's awesome. So does Hiko need to panic it? Yes, you're only thinking about the quality of the show. Thank you. Well, I'm naturally in a state of panic most of the time, so you know, it's good. Not related to anything here, but very good to see that India has overturned its ban on homosexuality. Given that they're like a fifth of the world's population, it seems only practical. I mean, you know, I don't know if I quite go, if I believe wholly. I mean, I realize that when you say that, like, what is it, 1 in 10 people or something are LGBT, it puts a perspective. You can look at any room and realize, oh, there's always going to be 3 or 4 people. And actually, I've been in situations where that's been pretty consistently accurate, but I don't know how universal that is, or, you know, it's kind of, because you never know what people are, 5% even. But at the same time, well, you can never really know. That's right, it might be more, it might be less. But the point is, when you're talking about 1.3 billion people, that's an awful, you know, 5% is not a small number of people to basically make illegal, right? So, yes. If you have a big group, well, if you have 20 people in a room, it means there's going to be, and I remember when I went to high school, I was at an all-boys high school, and we had this in our, you know, what do we call it, so not social studies, but something like that. There was like some once a week class where basically they'd tell us about, you know, puberty and stuff like that, and this came up one time that, you know, did you know that 5% of all people are gay? And I was in a room of 40 boys, and we immediately did the math and realized, oh, so there are 2 people in this room. Who is it? You know, there probably were. I don't know who they were, but yeah, it was. It is kind of funny. I mean, it was, of course. I mean, that's the only thing. That's the only way you can react. You should never say that in front of a bunch of 14-year-olds. This was interesting information. This was shared earlier this week. There was a survey done of the most appealing and the least appealing cities to Japanese people in Japan. So, perspectives of Japanese. Starting with the most appealing cities, votes were Sapporo, surprisingly number 1, although it is a lovely, like I said, it's a big city, it's got everything, but at the same time, it's all kind of new, it's all spread out, it's all, you know, it's kind of, so Sapporo apparently does have a great standard of living. As is Fukuoka is really famous. Sendai is actually really famous, but that's not there, of course. Sendai probably got struck down because of the big earthquake a few weeks ago, although Sapporo as well is having trouble with that at the moment, no power. Kyoto, 18%, so, you know, most appealing. Kobe, Osaka, and Nagoya. Down the bottom there at number 8, 3.5%. Tokyo, of course, a lot of people go for Tokyo. Tokyo is just awesome. That's why I live here. However, they also surveyed what are the least appealing cities in Japan. Yes, they probably do love stuff. They got the Yuki Matsuri, so that's all good stuff. But the least appealing, boom, number 1, 31.9% of people said Nagoya immediately. It is a bit of a joke. It's a big city, but it's just sort of not really known for like the culture of Osaka, the history of Kyoto, the vibrancy of, you know, Yokohama and Tokyo. So it's kind of like it's got some Toyota factories nearby. It's a car town, so I feel a bit tough. I also feel really bad for Fukuoka because Fukuoka is my Japan hometown, and it's awesome, and it's actually in the high rankings, but somehow it ended up there in the low rankings. Osaka, you can be pretty sure that's Tokyo people bagging Osaka, saying Osaka, and you can be pretty sure that that's Osaka people bagging Tokyo, saying Tokyo. But yeah, and I guess Sapporo as well. Now that I see it, they're down in 5. But interesting to see that how Japanese perceive cities. As a Canadian, the J-Vlog says, fluff the snow. Yes, make a snowman out of it. Never want to see snow again. See, I'm from New Zealand, and I lived in one of the two towns in New Zealand that gets snow once every 2 years, and it's kind of icy, and it's probably not what you would consider real snow. So, and people in Australia like totally freak out of snow. They don't get to see it at all. So you have to understand different strokes. We all come from different places. I can understand if you're from Canada, probably the last. I mean, seriously, it's like a Saudi Arabian not wanting to go somewhere with too much sand. So yes, I get that, but still, apparently it's a lovely place to go, and they have great food there as well. I kind of get it. Again, not Japan, but I'm just kind of interested in this. Let me start by saying, I love what Elon Musk does, and I figure, and the point is, and this applies to Serena Williams as well. I said this and I got so much backlash for it, but here's the thing. Sometimes our heroes turn out to be assholes. Now, when I say asshole, I have people that I respect and that I like who I consider to be assholes. I mean, sometimes the point is, strong-willed people, strong-minded people, successful people tend to be very strong, and that means that, it's very rare that you'll have a perfectly rounded role model who's also a high achiever. And I recognize that this is all just part of the magic sauce. You just can't, there's balances in trades. Great sports people often are dicks. By all accounts, in New Zealand, Sir Edmund Hillary, the first man who climbed Mount Everest, people said he was very unpleasant to get along with. The sports heroes of my country, you often hear and you find out. You hear so many stories. I mean, you think about the biggest heroes that some countries have. Bill Cosby, but before even the fact that he was a serial rapist came out, all the stories that came out of him being just such a dickhead towards, black people on scholarships when they idolized him, for example. Listen, it happens everywhere. And here's what Bill Cosby, leading into this with Bill Cosby was bad, because I'm saying I want to say that this is okay. Obviously, Bill Cosby is not okay. Let's put that aside. But the point is that sometimes it's obviously just part of the human condition. You need to be a little bit of an asshole sometimes to be able to get stuff done. And Elon Musk gets really impressive stuff done, and I support his rocket company, the tunneling company, the power, the electric cars and shit. A bunch of people 5 years ago were saying all of this stuff, self-driving cars, electric cars, commercial spaceflight, this is like 40, 50 years away if NASA feels like it, which they probably don't, may never happen. And all of a sudden this shit is all real, and I'm really excited about it. I think this is a really exciting time to be alive. And that man there with the marijuana cigarette in his hand, smoking with a very puffy looking face, is responsible. I mean, he gets the credit for it, along with a couple of other people, but he's really one of them, and I love the fact that he's doing that. And even though every time I look at what he's just tweeted recently, or done online, or said, or whatever, kind of shows him to be a bit of a dick. I just don't want to see that. I'm okay. I mean, he is what he is. I don't want him to change his personality. Because clearly the formula is working pretty. All the labor violations and safety issues and everything that the factories aside, it seems like he's getting stuff done. And again, you think of some of the greatest, most impactful things that have happened in the last 10, 15 years. They've been done by people who are, at best not well socially adjusted. Thinking Facebook, thinking Google, thinking about all of these things. So I don't know, of all the things that he's done, and he's done some things that made me go, dude. I mean, I really would like him to delete his Twitter. As a fan of the man, I want to know less about him. I want him to delete his Twitter. Going out just calling random people pedophiles, just all the dumb stuff that he's done. Legally smoking a mixed marijuana and tobacco thing on a podcast, to me, is the least offensive thing that he's actually done. I mean, who cares? Seriously. I mean, he does dumb shit, he says dumb shit, but he gets, what his company does is great. I mean, so the fact that his share price just crashed, and this is actually even before this incident happened. There was another article I was reading this week, which I must admit, I'm very much a part of the capitalist machine myself, and I was very much brought into the idea, given my job as a corporate lawyer. I often would think in my last job, I don't think it now in my new job, and it's causing me to reframe my whole view of the world at the moment, that companies are the capitalist construct. That companies are owned by the shareholders, and when you are an officer of the company, your mission is to protect those invisible shareholders from the ass hatchery of the of people running around doing things that will damage the company from inside, right? That's why you go around. That's why you don't, set people on fire, or you don't email microwave cats to people, because it'll cause the staff price to go down, and that's what you must prevent. And where I am now doesn't think like that, but I must admit, I read a great article this week talking about that. This is actually a really real flaw that everyone, just without questioning, has taken for granted about capitalism, which is that companies are not for the employees, they're not for the customers, they're not for the, they are for the shareholders. And and what this causes is short-term decision making. It means that he smokes a doobie and the share price drops 10% and 2 executives quit. And yes, that's a natural reaction, but does that mean that all the other stuff that he's doing and the direction and the strategy and the vision of the company is wrong? No, it doesn't change anything. I mean, it's ridiculous that, of course, on a whim, on a day, on a crappy tweet, which I wish you had stopped doing, it's going to affect the share price. And if you take the share price and the shareholders as the be all and end all of everything, then he should resign immediately. But then you're going to have what happened to Apple when Jobs was fired or whatever. When you have people short term just trying to think about pumping out dividends for shareholders, I think we've seen the flaws of that model, and we haven't done enough to question it. So I don't know. I mean, like I said, I really would like to just basically go like this with Elon Musk and encourage him to keep doing whatever he does. Hopefully from a log cabin in the mountains, please. This is like just exactly the $280 million puff. Thank you, Kang and Kodos. This bothers me the absolute least of all the things that he's done. And more bad. Speaking of terrible decisions made in the moment on social media, Twitter has decided that what the world really needs is to be able to instantly voice tweet messages. I'll bet the president's exploding with excitement at this. Yeah, that seems like a really, really good idea. I love Twitter. But even today, I've just had basically a bunch of, I would say, fairly toxic conversations. Toxic in the sense that they're negative energy. I motivated myself. I did a post saying, can't believe that Serena disrespected Naomi like that. Very disappointing. I was expressing a negative emotion, and then people were bouncing back off me with contradictory negative emotions that made me feel like I had to justify myself with more negativity. I've been in the spin of negative tweeting all day. And I tell you, it's addictive, and it's negative, and I try very hard, actually. If you follow me on Twitter, you'll know I either tweet things that I find interesting, just this is interesting, and I try to consciously be positive most of the time. I say this was awesome, this was great, I love this, I like this. I don't often drop bombs on, screw this guy. I'll do it sometimes, but and I did it today. And I'm just looking across, I've got 17 unread new tweet notifications, and most of them are people who are pissed off saying, no, the umpire was sexist, or you're perpetuating the patriarchy, or you don't understand the tennis rules, which is true, by the way. I'm not admitting to that on Twitter, but I totally don't understand the rules of tennis, so I shouldn't be even arguing about this, but it's what it does, right? So I don't know, it's like Twitter, I found myself even today thinking, is this really healthy? Should I really be doing this? The thing is, what you get back from it when you use it the right way is, yes, I know, Gizmodo, you're correct. But, what we get back from it when we use it well is we get this wonderful interaction that we're doing right now. You guys all know that I'm online. We get to have these great messages and conversations and sharing information and getting enlightened, and it's like Musk, right? We get the rockets, we get the artificial intelligence, we get all the cool stuff. The downside is that we also just get the ass hats, and sometimes we become them, and unfortunately, and I really wonder if we're moving into an age, like I say, a reality TV age, where any sort of drama is good drama, and you got to be like the current U.S. president to get. Is this going to just spread? And if that's the case, I don't know. I'm questioning a bit like shareholder value, whether this is a good thing or not. But I'm in for the ride anyway. Unfortunately, that's right. Alex Jones can now devote more time to his gay frog studies, which he'll be selling the vitamins to fix. Dave Hunter, indeed. That's right. That guy got banned, and for all the reasons I've said before, that guy deserved it. I mean, he seriously deserved it. I mean, that's not political censorship. That's not thought police. That's the guy freaking, you know, rolled over the TOS on that. So yes, trying to get back into a positive spin, but not able to do it yet. So I'm just going to say this momentarily. So in Japan, Korea, as always happens, you know, huge approval ratings for the new president, which is great for Japan because it means that if they're doing well, they'll just focus on the economy and trying to make things better. However, what inevitably happens with every president of Korea, right wing and left wing, is that the moment things go badly, they start just like bashing like hell on Japan. It's the old playbook, and it's a safe one. I mean, the last president of Korea, her dad was like best friends with Shinzo Abe's dad. He was practically a collaborator. He actually served in the Japanese military during World War II. I mean, the relations could not have been better, but of course she was embarrassed and doing badly in the polls, so she decided that she was just like gonna not talk to Shinzo and bash on them for years, and got the comfort woman deal out of it, that this new guy got popular from basically tossing out the window. As someone who really would like Korea and Japan to just get along, it's not going to happen. When this happens, it's the standard Korean political playbook that they're going to start just finding things to bash Japan for. And you know, and as we know, you don't have to look very hard at Korea to find things to bash about. You just have to open up a history book, and you got a million different, you know, a million easy reasons, and that's why they go to it. It's a safe place to go. And I'm afraid that we're going to see backwards movement on relations tied to this. You know, I wish it wouldn't, but we'll see. Yeah, I was reading this week. Now, this is interesting. So I talked earlier about the earthquake, Shindo 7, the largest possible ground acceleration that you can have for a quake. However, Japan is also, of course, where like 4 or 5 different tectonic plates meet. You may also be interested to know that of all the tectonic plates, not just the Pacific and Asia, there's like a North Asia, there's like a Philippine plate, and Tokyo actually is on a really small plate that sits, that basically sits like a plate, like literally like a plate. It's like shaped a bit like a kind of a triangle kind of a shape, and it sits on top of 3 plates where they're all like moving under it, and it just sort of bumbles around on top. So Tokyo is like on a really small tectonic plate, which means it's basically, you know, gets triggered massive earthquakes from, you know, 3 other plates moving. So all of these lines are of course fault lines. It's where earthquakes happen. But the thing is that earthquakes can and do happen anywhere. I mean, they happen in Australia, which is dead in the middle of a tectonic plate. They don't have fault, well, maybe they've got minor fault lines. You know, but earthquakes can happen even in the middle, even away from a tectonic plate. And this earthquake, and there's always been this idea that, well, yes, they can happen, but if they're not on the fault line, they can't be that big. However, the Shindo 7 that happened in Atsuma, right there in Hokkaido this week, it's a massive earthquake. You have to understand, whole mountains just collapsed and spread and became these massive landslides that buried this town. This was not on a fault line. This was an inland earthquake. And apparently earthquake experts that had previously, when they do these risk maps of Japan, they always point out, you know, higher risk, lower risk of mega quakes. They talk about Shindo 7 type quakes. And a Shindo 7 quake, by the way, is basically shaking so large that you cannot design earthquake proofing for it. It's just basically, you know, I've been through the scale before, but you know, non-earthquake proof buildings have trouble from 5 lower, 5 upper. Earthquake proof buildings will get different degrees of damage of lower 6 and upper 6. But 7, just like you're just screwed, like literally mountains collapse, and that's what happened here. There's always been a belief that Shindo 7 earthquakes could only happen on these major fault lines. However, this earthquake proved that they can happen actually anywhere. And given that Japan is always just moving all over the place, basically experts have come to the conclusion that megaquake can occur anywhere in Japan. Yes, folks, we are all screwed. Congratulations. The experts have declared it, and that is extremely depressing. And that's not rocket news. That's NHK World. So yes, they've decided that apparently massive, and basically they discussed the mechanism of the earthquake, but there we go. It's not exactly on a fault line, and that's where basically that these things can happen anywhere. So yeah, welcome to OD Junior. Good to see you. Good to see you. Just letting everyone know in Japan. Well, as we already know this anyway. I mean, hell, I was on Tuesday. We literally still had the typhoon, like the 200 kilometer per hour, 60 meter per second wind. You know, biggest typhoon in 25 years going over West Japan. And then this Shindo 7, this mega earthquake happening in Hokkaido at the same time. 3 million people without power in, you know, northern Japan. Osaka airport closed in West Japan. I'm like, you know, typhoons to the left of me and earthquakes to the right, and here we are stuck in the middle in Tokyo. But pretty much we can all get this anytime. And this is something that you should always remember. Wherever you live in Japan, or frankly anywhere in the world can get this, but certainly in Japan, the odds are basically 100%. If you live here for 5 to 10 years, anywhere in Japan, the chances are extremely high that you're going to experience a significant natural disaster. Really more than any other country in the world, you're almost certain to encounter. I've lived here for 20 years in Tokyo. Tokyo has a 70-year mega quake cycle, and its last one was in 1923. We're overdue. It's a 100% thing, so you just have to, seriously, I know everyone thinks, oh yes, I should totally have a civil defense kit, I'm going to get around to that any year now, people say, but when you live in Tokyo, you really should have a civil defense kit in your house. I mean, no shit, seriously. You should keep a buffered stock of water and non-perishable foods. You're going to need that. We got a test run during the Great East Japan earthquake. I know I've gone on about this multiple times, but it's really real, and now the experts are sort of pointing it out, apart from the fact, and the first thing is surviving the quake itself, and you should know about that, stand under a door frame, all the sort of normal stuff, but honestly, that's not the hard part. The hard part is what, 5 million people, 3 million households in Hokkaido are experiencing right now. It's when water stops, power stops, public services go out, and for months, how do you survive? That's what it's about, and that's why you got to keep a kit. And these things are going to happen. They're going to happen. So, there is that. Kelly Slater, he made this awesome wave pool. And I really want to go. It's in inland in California, but I hope they make these everywhere. It looks really, really rad. I mean, they've had these wave pools before, but he's made like a really, really good one. And again, for the idea of something for the Olympics, of having a regular rideable wave, yeah, I mean, it's Kelly Slater. He made it, so of course he's not going to do a crappy one. So yeah, that's awesome, and I want there to be more of those. Osaka acting cute and nice, and can't wait to see her get to the final after the semi-final. So disappointing how it turned out. We talked last night about Burt Reynolds, all-around legend. Apart from the fact I grew up loving Smokey and the Bandit. I mean, I was just like in the peak time for when that was like a big movie, and I just would watch that over and over on the new video recorders that we had. Yeah, he was. I had no idea that he was offered and turned down the roles of Han Solo and John McClane from Die Hard. He would have been awesome. Apparently, as Victor was saying last night, I did not know that he really regretted playing the role that he played on Boogie Nights. Boogie Nights is one of the greatest movies ever. It's one of the greatest movies ever, and his role in it was like so good. I don't know how he could regret that, but it was a departure. But anyway, yes. It's a shame, but that was, he's a legend, and I grew up really, really, yes, that's right, eastbound and down, 16 wheels are rolling, we're going to do what they say can't be done. I love that. I mean, my dad listened to country music all the time as well. That wasn't Waylon Jennings, actually, that was Dukes of Hazzard. But I grew up listening to country music. My dad's a huge country music fan. He's a redneck, he's from New Zealand, it makes no sense. My dad loved America, and he listened to nothing but country music, and I lived in a car that sounded probably like Smokey and the Bandit car did. So what can we say? Rest in peace. Who orders a pizza in the middle of a 60 meter per second wind mega typhoon? Apparently somebody did, and the fight and determination of this Domino's driver to try to deliver the pizza when his bike is literally getting blown backwards and sideways. Oh, Japan. I mean, but seriously, they should have just shut that down. Lodestar, that was just, I love the Unabomber analysis here, and apparently only one person in the entire world uses the word Lodestar over and over, although some people saying, well, they're trying to frame Pence. I don't know what this is, and you know what, it was kind of fun thinking about it, but then I just got tired and I needed to lie down. Please stop doing that, America. Please leave us alone. Don't stop doing that. Japanese construction sites, they want to be foreigner friendly. Good news, because we need more people on construction sites, and I know people have done that, including BLK Yuenke. He did that. The one thing about Japanese construction work is that they're real artisans. Japanese construction techniques are kind of legendary. They've got a, of course, Japan's economy, post-war economy, is built on construction. Literally, I mean, it's built on building. But yeah, it's it's not very internationalized at all, but at the same time, they want to keep building. They're going to have to find people to do the work, and there's a worker shortage in Japan. So good news, if you do construction, you're interested in coming to Japan and gaining experience, again, hopefully the apprenticeships, at least in this industry, make sure you go to a good reputable company, but it'd be interesting opportunity for people who want to do that. Pro tip, don't go out in a typhoon. Yeah, that's a good one. This drove me nuts. The Bank of Japan, which has had an inflation target, they want to promote the economy by basically having prices go up on stuff, by which they have been begging companies to raise wages, because people have more money, they can buy more stuff where people can raise prices. But companies have not been playing ball. They've been holding on to the cash, even when Abe himself has been saying, please give people pay raises. The Bank of Japan's been begging them. They've been printing money, trying to devalue the currency. Hasn't worked. And so now the Bank of Japan has decided they're going to attack the Fair Trade Commission and the Ministry of Internal Affairs and Communications, which has been attacking mobile phone companies for ripping off customers with unethical overcharging contracts. And basically the Bank of Japan is saying, hey, if the mobile phone companies stop ripping off customers, that's going to cause deflation. It's going to mean that people are it's going to lower the consumer price index. Fair Trade Commission, stop doing it. Stop protecting consumers, because you're going to work against our goal of promoting inflation. As if that's the way you want to do it. I mean, if the Bank of Japan is so given up on trying to actually improve wages for people and cause a positive cycle of inflation, they're now going to support basically phone scams. I was slightly infuriated by that, but yes. Again, retirement is about to become a thing of the past. Of course, in Russia right now, where the life expectancy already is Jesus, 30 for guys. It's not that bad. It's 50 or something. But they've just pushed the retirement age, which I didn't actually realize it was so low. Actually, it was 55 in Russia that you can retire. But apparently that is the average life expectancy of men, and they've pushed it out beyond that. And people have been saying that the retirement age now, half of pensioners in Russia will not live to get a pension, will not live to get a retirement. That is actually how the retirement age was set in the first place. People might not be aware, but most countries deciding on 65 was, the healthiest countries in the world. Britain, America, Switzerland, France. Back in the day when they first introduced pensions, that was the average life expectancy. It was like a bonus for making it to the life expectancy age, that you didn't have to work anymore if you got to that. The thing is that now people live to be 80 and so on, so you get a lot of people like in Japan, they get to be, have retirements of 20, 30, 40 years. And that's the thing. People have forgotten that data point. This is partly why, with the increasing life expectancy and so on, it's a burden. The pensions are an increasing burden on society that they weren't before, which is also why, and this is really depressing, but the only way to make the pension system sustainable, frankly, is probably that eventually either they're just going to get rid of it altogether, or they're going to increase it to the average life expectancy. And I live in a country where people live on average to be 83 or 84 years old. So even they're pushing it out till 70. I don't know. To me, the only solution is to actually try to have, to be Elon Musk, to have something going on the side that turns into something that people like and appreciate, and will run itself. Have a side business or whatever that you can have to supplement a pension, because I don't think you can rely on getting a pension paid out. But yeah, the first signs are there. They're definitely moving from 65 to 70. So yeah, Soylent Green, behave, Mr. Cordy chap. That's Osaka Airport. Could be closed for a week because it's underwater. This is what happened when you have a airport built on an artificial island at sea level. And this is just the start of it. We're going to have more of these crazy storms. Climate change is happening. It's real, and it's causing sea levels to rise. And I guess you can always build levees around them, but this is the future. Yes, that's what I said. I thought that was very funny. I repeated it earlier, and there it is again. Must be funny. That's the earthquake. It was a big one. Glow. I finished watching Glow this week. Oh man. So I'm already over time, but I'm gonna keep going. Damn it. Here's the thing with Glow. I've watched. One thing I love about Netflix and Amazon, where I watch video on both of those services, is I like the new TV concepts that probably wouldn't get put onto mainstream regular TV. That take the opportunity and freedom, the same way that people used to feel about going into cable. Now they're making them for Netflix, and they go into themes and topics and take approaches that are innovative and challenging. I mean, it's a breath of fresh air, the types of things that we're seeing. And I've had people recommend things to me and that I've gotten around to watching eventually. I mean, one that really stands out for me still is Master of None. And, you know, the way that Aziz Ansari made that series was like breathtaking sometimes. I thought it was just so incredibly awesome and refreshing how he did that. And I remember somebody told me for a long time, watch Orphan Black, it's really, really good. You know, it's a sort of science fiction, it's sort of women-oriented take on science fiction themes. And I was like, well, I've enjoyed Black Mirror, I've enjoyed a lot of these things. So I watched Orphan Black, all like 5 seasons of it, and at first I liked it, but as happens, I think when any TV show goes for like more than 3 seasons, is the writing starts to get a bit stale, it gets a bit soap opera-ish. And it became a bit like a MacGyver, you know, if MacGyver used female sanitary products. I mean, that's literally how it became towards the end. And it was cool. It's cool that they're doing, you know, women's themes, and they're being very women focused, and they're showing things, you know, which normally, and it made me self-reflect and think, you know, I've never seen this sort of thing on, you know, on regular TV before. And you know, is this me finding it boring, or is this me being a dickhead who's used to seeing stuff that's made for me? You know, it made me think about that. I was listening to it. I didn't really enjoy Orphan Black by the end. I enjoyed the first couple of seasons of it. And so Glow was always there. I always heard that it was good, but you know, it's basically about it's a series about a women's, you know, pro wrestling circuit set in the 80s, and it kind of sounded, well, you know, it's got the nostalgia thing, it's got the women's themes or whatever. You know, I'll get around to watching it sometime. It was on my my list for like 2 years, maybe not 2 years, maybe about a year basically before I finally got around to watching it. It's so good. I would put it up there by the end of season 2. Season 1 and season 2 are very different. Season 1 is more like a comedy. It's a little bit, it's got themes, it's got depth, it builds out over time. It kind of catches you off guard because it seems a bit goofy at first. But season 2 has the comedy, but it actually goes really, really deep as well, and it kind of catches you off guard like that. Like, it's really good. And I talked about Boogie Nights earlier, Burt Reynolds. This was like, for me, the ensemble, like by the end of season 2, I'm like, damn, this is like Boogie Nights level for me. Innovative, fresh, and this is the thing. When I watched Orphan Black, I was thinking, is there something wrong with me that I just don't like watching women's themes or something like that? I was thinking about that. Is this an issue with me that I'm not enjoying this as much as I should? With Glow, this is how you should do it. I mean, it was just like, it's just awesome. It's so good. Can't recommend Glow enough. It's just it's extremely well done. And season 1, season 2, I don't know. I haven't seen anything so good in a long time. I'm really watching Better Call Saul. There's a bunch of series that I've liked that have had a big impact on me. Master of None was one of them, but Glow was so good. Shivers finished watching it this week. In fact, a couple of people were watching it at the same time, just by coincidence. And we've just been, yes, it's a glowing review. Thank you for that, Mr. Cordy Chip. Where would I be without you? Volvo's made a concept car basically describing, based on the concept of a self-driving car, of a level 5 self-driving car that I've been talking about on this show for a long time. I think, hello Volvo, you must be watching, because you described, well, you stole my idea, man, you stole my idea. A car that can be a substitute for long distance travel, that you go to sleep and you wake up, you come in the place, cars that are places where you can sleep, where you can work, where you can set up meetings, that are not focused on the steering wheel. This is what I want now. And you know, that guy smoking marijuana earlier, if he doesn't deliver it, I would love it if Volvo can do it. And I'm really glad that you are on my wavelength, Volvo. Now do it, make it happen, seriously. Skype, I talked about Skype being awesome earlier, and the new features associated with that. That is a video that's just crazy, showing how powerful the wind around Kansai Airport was. Tokyo, yes, is actually with depopulation, Tokyo is becoming denser. People are coming into the inner suburbs, and that's it for the week. We are over time. Love Boat with wrestlers. Yeah, it's kind of one way of describing it. Yes, Volvo. They're boxy, but they're good. I've gone over time, but I made this track which I really liked. I'm going to set it up, so I'm going to play it just for the outro. I'm going to play around for a bit, and that'll be the show. So it'll be a bit long tonight, but that's all good in the hood, I hope. I hope you enjoyed the show, everybody. Thank you, Davo. I love doing this, and there's been a lot to talk about tonight. It wasn't hard, actually. So 2.5 indeed is back. Yes, bigger and better than ever. See from Berkeley, good to see you. Let me go and grab the iPad and set it up. And if you want to have a wee listen, have a listen. If not, I'll see you next week. And look out for 2.5 Wee Aussies, which will be on this channel again next week, because I'm going to try to improve the interface and everything. And for everyone else, polka punk theme. I like that. It's not a bad idea. Go and vote. Otherwise, have a good week, and we'll see you back here at Tokyo Tonight next week. I'll be right back. One second. Okay, let's take that out and plug that in. It's going to look a little bit weird, but that's okay. Then let's take this, plug this in here. Boom. That is interesting. Okay. Okay. You probably can't see this, but let's try that. That sounded like the right sound. And let me put this in. I just realized I need to add the sound device for this, so I will do that in a moment. Can I do that? Can I add something to the mixer in the middle of a broadcast? Oh, I can't. Wait a minute. So on Streamlabs OBS, can I add an audio source? Gotta be able to do this. Hey Sonny, good to see you. Can I do this? I bet you I can do this. I'm going to add a source, which is going to be my audio input capture. And add source, and let me pick it out. Mic at the front. That's the one. Done. Audio input. Oh, that's it. Haha. Okay. I wonder if I have to convert the scene to do this. Let's just do this for a sec. Ooh. So, here's the outro, and boom, let's do this. Give me a break, man. Yes, I'm just doing the outro now. So. okay, I've just realised like when I set this up that the first arpeggio is actually not well sequenced with the beat there, or not how I naturally do it. But yeah, anyway, that's a drum and bass track I was making. What's the one before that? That's what I was playing the other week. Anyway. I'm going to outro with that. It's been a good show. Good to see you again. And yeah, have a good week, everybody. Boom. Peace. See ya. Thanks for joining, everybody. And remember to like if you liked it. Peace.